Welcome back to the Journey podcast with me and Harvey. Today we're going to be getting a little bit more into actual real estate, kind of focusing and niching into what we're actually good at rather than more broad sort of conversation and intro conversation into what this podcast is. So
Definitely.
where we're starting is the 5 myths of real estate. There seems to be a common thread between many first-time homebuyers that we work with. So we just want to knock out the 5 things that we hear the most often that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. And to kick it off, I feel like my favorite is always when people feel like they need 20% down payment to be able to afford a house. And I believe I was talking to a couple a few months back. We ended up closing on the deal. And the first time I met them, and they were like, oh, yeah, we are thinking of buying the property. But as of now, we are just focusing on raising the down payments because we heard that we need to have like 100,000 to be able to buy the house. And I was like, who told you that? And they're like, oh, it's about 20% down payments, right? But then I had to sit them down to explain to them, like literally, the minimum requirements for like first-time home buyer on FHA, it's like 3.5%. We can even do 0% down if you are qualified, like I did myself. And with conventional, you can go as low as 3% on a house. And most people, they feel like they need 20%, but no, you don't need.
Yeah. I mean, social media, you see a lot of people say 20. Alex Hermosi on his podcast, or maybe he was on a podcast and said this, but he thought the first-time home buyer, the minimum was 10, which is still couldn't be further from the truth. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there of people thinking you need to put a lot more down. And I talk to people that say that they're saving up for 20% down. It's like, man, you know, if you're going to be buying a $700,000 house and you need, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but what is that, like $130,000?
Yeah, 140.
$140,000. And the average salary here is maybe like 60, 70,000.
No, the average like 45.
Okay, $45,000. And they have expenses, families they have to take care of. They're probably not making a lot of extra money to save. By the time they have that 20% down, it's going to be 10, 15 years from when they start the conversation that they're starting to save for the down payment. So getting educated to know that 20% down is completely a myth, that you can go as low as potentially even 0% down, but more often than not 3 to 3.5%, and still get just as good of terms. I feel like people think you sacrifice your terms on your loan, meaning your interest rate's going to be much higher. You know, some expenses are going to be much higher if you don't put the 20% down. There is mortgage insurance. That's a very minimal cost, but like on FHA, 3.5% down, your interest rate is actually lower than if you went conventional 20% down. So, and the spread is about what the cost of the mortgage insurance is anyways. So putting 3.5% down, shoot, your monthly payment might actually be lower than somebody that's going to conventional 20% down.
Definitely. And then having a 3.5% down now is gonna also save you a lot of money along the run, right? So let's say you make 50 grand a year. And you need, like, you bring home roughly around 37, 38 after taxes. If, assuming you had to save like every penny of your salary, and you and your spouse, you are making roughly like 70 grand a year. That's gonna take you 2 years.
Right.
Assuming you don't spend any penny, right? To just have 20% down to buy like a $700,000 home. But by the time you save up that 20% down, the house you want to actually buy will be now worth $900,000.
Right.
So right now you are coming short with like 40 other thousand. That's going to take another year to save up, assuming you don't spend a penny.
House prices go up year over year.
Yes.
You were thinking you needed 140. You check that house again. It's $100,000 more. Now you need to save up an additional 20,000. That takes you another half a year.
Right.
You're getting further and further away from being able to purchase a house.
Yeah. Versus when you put down like a 3.5%, which is what most people do, you can be able to afford the house you want now, and then start building your equity. So now, if you buy that $700,000 home in 2 years, when the house goes up to 900, now you just build up a $200,000 equity
Right.
that you wouldn't have otherwise. And the stat shows that people who actually own houses in America are 40% richer.
Really?
Yes.
Your net worth is 40% larger
Then
as a homeowner
yes.
versus as not a homeowner.
Right. Because on average, appreciation goes anywhere between 6 and 10% every single year.
Right. And in Washington, it's even inflated on that. There was COVID years, it's like 25%.
Right.
18 to 25%.
Yeah. So there are a lot of benefits of owning a house, even when you are just putting down 3.5%. So the first myth, you don't need 20% down. You can buy a home with 3.5%. We can even go as low as 0% for the down payment assistance program. But with that program, you have just to be mindful of the highest interest rate. So so every time I'm talking to my buyers, if it comes down to it, that you have to use the 0% down, definitely do it. Totally. It's always better.
It's better than not being able to purchase otherwise.
Right. But if you have an ability to actually come up with a 3.5% down, that just open up like a lot of other options for you.
Totally.
Yeah. So either way, you don't need 20% down to purchase a house.
Yep. Next myth that I hear is, as a lender dealing with credit score, often people come at it with a whole bunch of different numbers that they think you need to have. I know people have said they think you need 800 and higher. I'm like, I don't think I've ever even seen an 800 credit score. But more often than not, 750 seems to be the number, 740 to 760 people think that they need. Couldn't be further from the truth. Does having a higher credit score get you a better rate? Yeah, but it's also pretty negligible, right? If you're at a 750 versus a 650, the difference in rate might be like 0.5%.
Oh, wow.
Which it's not, it shouldn't make or break whether or not you get into a house, that's for certain. So just for like some quick guidelines, down payment assistance, so 0% down, 620 credit score, conventional loans with minimum 3% down, also 620 credit score, an FHA, 580 credit score. We can even go as low as 540 at times if you have other compensating factors such as higher down payment, co-borrowers, that sort of thing. But basically what I'm saying is if you're 540 and above, which a majority of people are, because you really have to ding up your credit pretty bad to be below that, you likely can qualify for a house, assuming the other stuff is taken care of.
So if someone has 3.5% down payment and has a 580 credit score, they should be able to buy a house.
Right. Yeah, I'm doing one right now.
Oh, nice. So you just heard that. So you have 580 credit score, 3.5% down payment. You call Jack.
Yeah, you're in a house, which, I think without the initial conversation, that person definitely didn't think they qualify for a house.
Yeah.
Right. You think they're probably in a position where maybe they have some credit card debt. They have some dings on their credit. They don't have a whole lot of money in the bank. They see a house that's $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. They think that's so far out of reach. But once you get in front of them and talk with them about kind of like what the numbers are going to look like for their down payment, their monthly payment, why having a lower credit score isn't necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but also isn't going to make or break whether or not they can get the house, the dream becomes more and more like reachable.
Right.
So it's a really rewarding piece of our work, right? A lot of people are in it for the money. The money's great, which is cool, but I think being able to help people that didn't think that they could be helped,
definitely,
and giving them the keys is like a very, very cool feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that comes down to our first episode, and if you didn't watch it, this is your time to actually go check the first episode. We talked about just knowing your options. Right. There are a lot of things that the media say, that people say. The brother-in-law who was once a realtor, who was thinking of buying a house in the 70s.
Who was once thinking about maybe being a realtor.
Yeah. So, I mean, you are going to hear like a bunch of things from different people, but just knowing your options. So if you didn't watch our first episode, just go back and watch it. That's going to tell you exactly what you need to know in order for you to know whether or not you are ready. And the next myth, this is even cool. Some people feel like they need to stay at one job for 2 years straight, right? And all these things, these are the situations we faced with people, right? You are having a conversation with someone and he's like, oh, I feel like I'm not ready to buy a house because I switched my job last year.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for to complete my 2 years history in this job so I can apply for a mortgage.
And usually we have to dig a little bit further. Like, oh, I'm not ready to buy a house. Well, why aren't you ready to buy a
Yeah.
house? Well, I haven't been at my job for 2 years. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Were you at a job before your current job? Yeah, I was at a different job for 9 years. Okay, well, is it a similar industry? There's a whole bunch of follow-up questions,
Right.
but more often than not, if you have a 2-year job history in total, I'm assuming you don't move from like salary to self-employment or things of that nature, which is in the weeds of it a little bit, but
Right.
more often than not, if you have a 2-year work history, you're good to go and you're going to be probably qualified for a house. On top of that, if you just graduated from college and you have a salary job offer letter, you can actually have 0 days of work experience and be qualified for a house. So thinking is
Could you just repeat
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
That's kind of cool.
So if you are receiving your college degree, so right now is in August. So I actually did one of these for a buddy back in June. He just graduated from University of Washington. He had his college transcript and he had his job offer letter, and we were able to use his salary offer letter amount as his qualifying income,
Oh, wow.
even though he didn't have a single pay stub from that company.
So basically, his college days is compensating.
That's his 2 years of work history.
Oh, wow.
Right, and
Okay.
he's going into a salary job, salary a little bit more promising than hourly, just because even if you miss some hours, you still get the pay.
Right.
So he was able to qualify.
Oh,
And
cool.
he just bought a condo in Seattle.
Right. So what if someone has let's say this buyer was working for X amount of time, then they had like a 6 month gap
Yeah.
in the job employment.
Yeah, gaps are more often than not fine. It all comes down to a letter of explanation. So our underwriter, the ones underwriting the file, making sure everything's good, is going to ask for the reason for the gap. And as long as you can give a decent explanation, it could be raising children or hardship during COVID or sick or tried an entrepreneurial venture that didn't end up working out, whatever it might be, as long as you can have some sort of explanation that explains the time, and the underwriter could be like, okay, that seems like a feasible reason.
Right.
And then you're back on the job earning consistently after that, then it's a non-issue.
So when they go back to the job, like how many weeks, month, or
Yeah, it differs. With salary, we don't need a day.
Okay.
You can go with salary. With hourly, if it's in the same industry as they were in before, it's usually about 3 months.
Okay.
If it's in a different industry and it's hourly, then we need likely 6 months. But the rules say it's subject to underwriter, so every underwriter is a little bit different as far as what they're comfortable with. Different market conditions will allow and not allow different things with underwriting. So it definitely depends. But I think a safe bet is if you get back into a position that's hourly, if you have 6 months on that job, you're more than likely good to go.
Oh, okay, cool. That's definitely good to know. So to summarize this myth, like someone who switched jobs in the past, they can still qualify for the house.
If that's your reason for not talking to a lender or a real estate agent, don't let it be, because if you have a 2-year work history and you didn't have anything crazy happen kind of in the middle of it or before it or after it, you're probably okay. And we can use your income to qualify.
And if they have a gap in the job history, talk to the lender. They will tell you what
We can get pretty creative.
what your options are. And if you are just getting straight out of college and you have a salary job offer, you can also
Think of how far ahead you can get, right? People, what's the average age to purchase a house? It's in your like late 30s.
Right.
Think of if you can do it when you're 22, right? So the one we just did for the guy who was getting out of UW,
Right.
he had taken a real estate class and he didn't know about this option. I don't even remember how I connected with him. It was through an agent, but in that real estate class, they told him, connect with a lender and see if you qualify for a house. And sure enough, he called me. Yes, you qualify for this amount
Then
based
you
on
got a
his down
house.
payment
Yeah.
and what his what his letter was, his salary job offer letter. Found a place, moving into it. It's a 3-bed condo in Seattle. He's having 2 of his buddies that are also graduating who didn't take advantage of this, renting from him. His monthly payment is right around, like, I don't want to get too into his business, but it's like, I think 3,000-ish. and he's charging each of them $1,500 to live in Seattle, which is a good deal for them.
So he's living for free.
He's living for free, and he's building equity on the house.
That's funny because that gets us to another myth that I often hear from people. Oh man, I can't afford a mortgage, right? So these two buddies are basically paying the mortgage,
Right.
but they are just paying someone else's mortgage.
Yeah.
Right? So people feel like if I'm renting, I'm not spending any money because it just called rent, it's not mortgage, versus if I'm paying a mortgage, it's like an expense I'm paying to the bank.
Right.
Right? But if you're renting, you are still paying a mortgage, right?
That's what I like to tell people.
Yeah, that comes down to what my dad used to say. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. At the end of the day, we all need a place to stay.
Of course.
And
that's why real estate's great.
Yes, and then when we have that place to stay, we have to pay for that place somehow. So whether you are paying for rent or you're paying for mortgage, we are all paying for something. So now the question becomes, are you paying for your mortgage or are you paying for someone else?
I always say, no matter what you're paying a mortgage. It's just a matter, do you want to pay for your own or somebody else's?
Yes.
That's how I like to say. So yeah, he got a 3-bedroom. He did that strategically. He was like, I only want a 3-bedroom because I have 2 buddies that want to move in. I know exactly what I'm going to charge them. Here's my max monthly payment, because he knew that he didn't want to pay any per month, and he was willing to sacrifice on his place, like get a condo on a lower floor, or maybe not on the street he wanted, no view, whatever. He didn't care. He knew he was going to charge them $1,500. He didn't want his monthly above $3,000. So he got a place, monthly payment with HOAs and everything. Literally, it was like $2,997 or something.
Wow.
He's charging them $1,500. He already has the lease agreement written up. He sent me a picture of it. He's like, I'm living for free, full year, and he's probably gonna renew it with him because it's his buddies.
Yeah.
I mean, man, what?
And the beauty of it is, he had 3-bedroom, right? So let's say 12 months from now, he wants to purchase a second property. So now the 2 buddies are already paying for his mortgage. Now he can rent the 3rd room, start cash flowing from his condo, another $1,500. That would then pay for his second place.
And you can use it to qualify. So once you get into the investing side of things, we get to look at the lease agreements you have on your current property and help use them as qualifying income. So we'd get to use his salary and then 75% of that lease income to offset that mortgage payment. So now he's able to purchase a new property and actually have a higher purchasing power, even though he already has a property on his name.
Right. But then you can also, let's say interest rate gets better. Next year, he can refinance his actual condo to get a lower monthly payment.
Cash flow even further.
But then the beauty of it is he can still either keep the lease payment from his buddies the same, or he can increase it.
He can up it.
He can increase it by let's say a couple $100. And now it could be cash flowing like $2,000 from that condo.
And the property's probably gone up in value. So I know a lot of people that they refinance, they pull out the additional cash that the property gained in equity. So let's say it gained $80,000 in equity over 2 years, refinance from 6% to 4% and take out $80,000, with the interest rate being 2% different. Even though your loan's $80,000 higher, your monthly payment's still probably that $3,000 or honestly even a little bit lower than that. So now his monthly payment is lower than it was before. He still has his tenants in there, probably paying more because rent goes up year over year. So he's cash flowing even further on that property. And he has $80,000 in his pocket for a down payment on another house, or maybe 2 down payments on 2 new houses. And now he's just stacking the deck in his favor, acquiring properties and doing exactly the investor mindset that we try to preach. You know, I think it's awesome, like I said, to get people into their first home. But if that's where you stop, you're missing the mark a little bit.
A lot.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's about acquiring that property and then realizing and learning and actually like doing the steps it takes to continue. Because in the game of real estate, like the first one's honestly the hardest one to get.
It is the most difficult. And then what most people don't really understand, or I would say don't really picture, is most people make 60 to 70 grand a year, right? And you have to really bust your butt off every single day, working 40 plus hours, and you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
But when you start owning properties, it's like having your free ATM machine, right? Every single year, you are going to acquire equity in the property. So it's like someone working for you for free. And if it's like an investment property, it's even better because now you can offset that debt to someone else. They will basically paying down your mortgage, and you are
Right.
just building equity.
Or
And
paying off your asset.
yeah, they are paying off your mortgage, and you can even cash flow. You can still keep your job, cash flowing from this investment property, building equity. 5, 10, 15 years down the road, you'll be all set.
You're earning more money without putting more time in.
Yeah,
We all have the exact same amount of hours per day. It's all about your leverage,
right.
right? If you have more leverage, that means you're making more money for your time. And we all have a finite amount of time, and we only have so much earning potential individually with the time that we have. For everybody, that's a little bit different. But if I'm able to multiply my time out from working 40 hours a week to working 80 hours a week because I hire an assistant to also do what I'm doing 40 hours a week, and I'm now earning double even though I'm putting in the same amount of time. Or with real estate, you get a cash flowing asset that thing's working while you're sleeping,
Right.
and making money for you. That's really how you step up. Because if you just try to earn more money at your job by getting bonuses or getting raises, the cost of goods is going up so exponentially that those are only going to keep you afloat. It's not
Right.
going to get you ahead. So
Yeah,
you have
definitely.
to think about ways to get ahead.
Yeah. So thinking that you cannot afford a mortgage just because it's called mortgage, it's kind of like missing on a lot because you are still paying a mortgage, but you are just paying someone else's mortgage. So you are paying your landlord's mortgage.
Right.
Yeah. Versus where you could really be paying for something for yourself and just start building, just being that equity.
Right. Be the landlord. Don't have a landlord.
Yeah. So one day my mom told me, "Oh man, the landlord makes a lot of money, makes all the money." And in my mind, I was like, I need to be buying. I just need to own a house. But
Landlord's not some special person.
Yeah.
It could be anybody.
When she said that, I was thinking I need to buy a house, which I needed to buy a house. But what she really meant was you got to be the goddamn landlord.
Yeah.
You have to be the landlord,
Right.
Because that's where all the money is. Not only with cash flow, but you can build your money with equity. So if you feel like you cannot afford a mortgage, you definitely can if your income qualifies you. And just don't be afraid. Look at your options. Go back again to our first episode. Look at your options and understand if your finances will actually qualify you to own something.
Right. So I believe that's 3 myths. Was that 3 or 4?
That's 4.
4. So we had down payment. You don't need 20%.
No.
Credit score. It could be much lower than 750 or 800, whatever anybody thinks it needs to be. Your job history. You don't need a 2-year job history necessarily. The 4th was...
I cannot afford a mortgage.
Right. Just the assumption that you can't afford a mortgage. Really, you're paying your rent. Could be paying a mortgage. With a mortgage, you're kind of paying yourself back. You're able to invest. You're able to step forward in creating more money for yourself and for your family.
Yeah.
And then the 5th is liabilities, right? I have a lot of people say they don't want to get approved for a mortgage or try to get approved for a mortgage because they have student loans, they have a car payment, they have X, Y, and Z, credit card debt, whatever it might be. And it's just not true, right? They might have those debts. That might be true, but it's not true that you wouldn't get qualified for a house. Like I had somebody had $25,000 in student loans, right? Right now, with student loans being like forgiven or delayed on payments, we only have to add a 0.5% monthly payment on whatever that debt is. So at 25,000, whatever 0.5% of that is, that's what the monthly payment we're hitting them on their debt to income ratio is, which is not significant at all. It probably changes your purchasing power. If you were without that debt qualified for 625,000 on a purchase price, you might be qualified at like 600,000. So it's very minimal. It does hardly anything at all. But they wanted to pay off that debt for $25,000. Now, if somebody's making $45,000 a year, 35 or 32 after taxes, whatever it might be, how long is it going to take them to pay off $25,000 in debt? That's what they think their hurdle is to purchasing a house. I said, let's look at the numbers. Sure enough, they're qualified at $615,000, and they wanted a house that was $500,000 anyways.
Right.
We're able to get them into the house. Without that conversation, they were going to be working for the next 3 to 5, 7, 10 years to pay off that student loan when it wouldn't have mattered in the first place.
Right.
You know?
So what you're saying is you are going to look at what would the monthly payment be on the student loan and see if that's going to affect positively or negatively the debt income ratio.
Right. So I don't care how big your debt is on anything. You could have a $500,000 debt. I don't care. I care what the monthly payment on your debt is. Now, is a $500,000 debt likely going to have a higher monthly payment? Yeah. But in the situation of student loans, since the monthly payment we have to hit them for is 0.5% right now, with them being forgiven and delayed,
Okay.
people can have pretty significant student loans and still get qualified for quite a bit of house. Okay. Right now is a great time. Like if you're a doctor where you have $200,000 of student loans, being approved now is much more likely than being approved in the near future. At some point, you're going to make a bunch of money where it won't matter anyways. Right. But in the near future, where let's say you make, instead of $60,000 a year, you make $150,000 a year, but we actually have to hit you for what the actually or the real monthly payment will be on that student loans compared to what we're putting in there right now just to comply with kind of like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Okay.
You're probably actually going to get qualified for less house because your monthly payment's going to be a heck of a lot higher than that 0.5%.
Right. What about people who have like car loans, credit cards?
Yeah. Again, it's all about the monthly payment. If your thoughts are, I don't know whether to get a car or a house, a car is a liability, a house is an asset. As we just talked about, you can make money passively and grow equity with a house, where a car you can't do that. Yeah, you can't pull up to the fancy dinner in a nice house. You have to do that in a nice car. But if you can delay stroking your ego just for a little bit of time, it will put you in a lot better position. And maybe your house gains $150,000 in equity over the next 4 years. You can pull that $150,000 out, go ahead and get yourself a real nice car.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, some people actually argue buying a house is a liability because technically, by definition, a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. But those people are listening to a bunch of gurus, and those gurus, they own millions and millions of dollars in real estate.
Right. They're telling you that so they can scoop up the real estate that you were going to buy.
Yeah. They own millions and millions of dollars in real estate, and they are telling you, oh, don't buy a house, rent a house, because buying a house is a liability. So just look at it this way. We said it, whether you buy or you rent, you still have to pay. You still have to get money out of the pocket. So the money that you're getting out of the pocket, is it going to build up something for you that you can own in the future eventually? Or are you just throwing money in the trash? Let's put it into perspective. Let's say you live Seattle, Washington, and your rent is $2,000 a month. So you are spending roughly $24,000 a year. Within 10 years, you are spending $240,000. Wow. And within 30 years, you are spending $720,000 that you will never, ever, no way under the sun, get back.
Right. And on the other side of the coin, the house that you were to buy in that course of 30 years probably goes up by a similar amount of money. Definitely. If you bought a $700,000 house in 30 years, it's probably worth not only $1.4 million, but probably a decent amount more than that.
Then it's paid off.
Right.
So
and it's paid off.
Yes. So when you're renting, you are losing basically $700,000. But when you are buying in 3 years, you are actually $1.4 million richer.
Right. So if you compare the two, negative $720,000 plus $1.4 million, that gap, you're now looking at a $2.1 million difference.
Yes.
Man, that ends up being pretty considerable. So yeah. You were saying people's net worth are 40% higher as homeowners versus as not homeowners. 40%'s got to be a conservative number.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. And then, I love stats, and I read an article also that says 80 to 90% of millionaires in America, they become millionaires through real estate.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
Through owning real estate.
Right.
So whatever guru that's telling you buying a house is a liability, I would say, as long as your finances qualifies you, as long as your income can support the monthly payments, there is no way you shouldn't buy a house.
Right. Well, what asset can you put in 3.5% of its worth and take its full equity gain? Like if you buy a stock, let's say your down payment on a house is $20,000. If you instead put that in a stock, $20,000 worth of stock, you own $20,000 worth of, let's say, Apple. Whereas a house, if you put in $20,000 on a $600,000 house, you own a $600,000 house, and yeah, you still have your mortgage on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it goes up to $800,000, that $200,000 gap, that is money in your pocket.
Right.
Apple would have to go up a shit ton for you to get $200,000 on a $20,000.
This is the best thing about real estate is leverage.
Right.
Yeah, you can literally leverage your money, just you said. Like there is no other investment that would let you.
And then you get to live in it. Like in a stock, you could just look at it on your phone and be like, hey, check this out. It's pretty cool. But not only all the leverage with real estate, but you actually get to live in it and use it and create passive income through renting it out. I mean, man, there doesn't seem to be anywhere else you should put your money. I know you need to diversify a little bit, but it certainly isn't buying a car.
Oh yeah, no. So owning a house is basically one of the best investments. And before we wrap it up, I would add one more myth that most people always have is the process takes way too long, and they feel like as a home buyer they need to quarterback everything from A to Z, right? So like buying a house, basically the process could go anywhere from like 7 to 30 days, depending on the transaction, depending on the situation, depending on the deal. So you don't have to wait months and months and months and months to close on the property, right? We've closed many deals on the 21 days. We've closed many deals on the 14 days. So talk to the lender, talk to your real estate agent, and just find out in your situation, if you find the property, what would be the timeline from submitting an offer to actually getting the keys to the house. And
you'll be surprised.
Yes. On average, the most, personally, for my client, is 30 days. The most. From the time we submit an offer and getting the keys. Yeah. And also, as a home buyer, you don't have to quarterback everything, right? So we are here to walk you through the process, to help you navigate through the process, to understand exactly what every single step would look like, what every document is. Why do you have to sign this document? Why do you have to do this? So we have a whole team behind us. Like personally, I have a huge team behind me that would help you not only with showings, but to understand all the paperwork. I'm going to also be there to walk you through the process. And I would say the same with you. You have an entire team behind you that's going to help the buyer through the process to make it as easy, as smooth possible. So you don't have to wait months and months and months to close on the property, and you don't have to quarterback everything. So we are all here to walk you through that.
Smooth and educational,
Yes.
right? We get them through it, no problem, but also teach them along the way.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was it about the 5, or I would say 6 myths that most home buyers have. And we are going to wrap it up, and thank you for watching. If you have any question relating to real estate, feel free to check us out with our contact below, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. We see you on the next episode. Until then, take it easy.
Thanks, guys.